My question is, has M. Night Shyamalan met a gay person before?
It's questionable.
My favorite thing about this whole movie was Daddy Andrew and Daddy Eric.
Oh my god.
Which, by the way, Daddy Andrew.
Daddy Andrew.
Daddy Andrew.
What is up? Call me sometime.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ride Home Podcast. My name is Abby.
Hey guys, it's Caitlin.
We are super excited to be back. We took a little bit of a break. I did some traveling for work, and we just needed a quick breather because we've been hustling on these episodes.
We have. It felt like a really long break, though.
Every time we take a week off, it feels like we've been gone for like a month.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no one's ever going to listen to us again. We're done.
No, we're not. Everyone's going to listen to us, but it did feel like a really long time. Felt a lot longer than a week. So It feels good to be back.
It does feel good to be back.
We missed you guys.
And I feel like this is a really good episode to come back on because I feel like this is a movie that we are going to be able to talk a lot about and unpack.
Mm-hmm.
We just got out of Knock at the Cabin, which is an M. Night Shyamalan film. And I think everybody who knows anything about him knows that he came super hot in the early 2000s with some bangers.
He came out with some real heavy hitters.
He came off the rip, just hitting hard. The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, The Village. It started going a little bit downhill with Lady in the Water, which like I personally love Lady in the Water, but a lot of people really hated it. And then we basically like crashed and burned at The Happening and The Last Airbender, and basically those two movies just really, it was like the largest fall from grace I think we've seen from a director in a very long time,
unfortunately.
And then he had Split and Glass, which were the follow-ups to Unbreakable. And then he did Old, which honestly is maybe the only one of his that I haven't seen yet, now that I think about it.
Okay.
So we missed out on that one.
Yeah, we did. And it didn't get great reviews, so
I think a lot of people missed out on that one.
Yeah, I don't think we missed it, really.
But M. Night is back.
M. Night is back.
And he's cooking because he has the #1 movie in America right now.
Crazy.
It has pretty decent reviews. Knock at the Cabin. And we were pretty excited to go see it.
I'm always apprehensive, though, because ever since his fall from grace.
Ever since The Happening.
It's just a bit of a toss-up.
It really is.
And you don't know what it's going to do.
I've watched back some of his movies since The Happening, and I tried to be like, is it that we loved him so much from The Sixth Sense that we like let the rest of it fly? Does that make sense?
Right.
Signs still holds up.
Sure.
I think the one reveal of the alien coming out from behind the bush at the children's birthday party is still one of like the scariest moments in like movie history.
For sure.
I think all of us are still traumatized from that.
Absolutely.
That one kept me up for sure. And I always like imagined alien fingers like underneath my doors.
Ew, yeah.
Like that was traumatizing. Those early ones still hold up. I think he did have some flaws.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I will say that I do appreciate about him a lot is that he truly does bring really original ideas to the table. And although I think every single script he's ever written could probably have used a lot more editing,
sure,
I still can appreciate having a writer-director still in the game, you know. People like that, like Martin McDonagh, who like writes and directs his own movies. I just have so much of like an appreciation for those people. Even if they have their flaws, it's still just a really impressive thing to be able to do that and to do it quietly, unlike James Cameron, who thinks that the sun shines out of his entire asshole.
Yeah, who will never ever stop hearing about.
James Cameron is James Cameron's #1 fan. He'll never let us forget
really
it.
He really is. And we're just going to have to see Avatars until we're dead.
Yeah.
A million sequels of Avatar.
He's going to live longer than us just to spite us, just to make more Avatars and force it down our throats.
100%.
He's going to be 200 years old making Avatar.
Yes.
Kept alive
in our
by machines.
Watching Avatar still.
He's going to be hooked up to like a breathing tube that's like forcing him to breathe as he's directing Avatar.
Oh my God.
You know it's true.
He would. He totally would.
M. Night, however, I feel like he's been a little more behind the scenes. Like he's been working on his stuff. He's been creating pretty consistently from the early 2000s. I think that's really respectable. And so 1,000% was excited to go see Knock at the Cabin, especially after seeing that it had pretty positive reviews.
Yeah, and the trailer was really good.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we saw it in the theaters, it really grabbed our attention. And of course, part of the reason why it grabbed our attention is because Ron Weasley was in the trailer. I was like, oh, it's Ron Weasley.
Ron Weasley.
So all of that being said, there's been a lot of hype about this movie, and it's just kind of something that we've both been excited to see.
Yeah. So this one stars Dave Bautista. It also stars Jonathan Groff, who a lot of people know from Broadway. And of course, Rupert Grint, who plays Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter series, who I think is in his television show Servant. So I think that's the connection.
Okay.
There. So he didn't just like randomly pull Ron
Rupert
Weasley.
Grint. Yeah.
You know who I should really get for my apocalypse movie? Ron Weasley.
Yeah. That's the missing piece.
That's the missing one.
Yes.
Would you do me a favor and read the non-spoiler synopsis from Google for me?
I absolutely will.
Thank you.
While vacationing at a remote cabin in the woods, a young girl and her parents are taken hostage by 4 armed strangers who demand they make an unthinkable choice to avert the apocalypse. Confused, scared, and with limited access to the outside world, the family must decide what they believe before all is lost.
As always, this will be a 50-50 episode, so we will do spoiler free up until you hear the little elevator music.
Yep.
And then we will talk about our spoiler review in the second half. So that being said, starting off our non-spoiler section of the podcast, what are your thoughts and feelings fresh out of the theater?
Not his best.
Not
his worst. That's it in a nutshell for me.
I don't know why I was expecting so much more.
Well, here's the thing. I'm holding my cards a little bit close on this one because there's a lot that I want to say about this movie.
Okay.
But this is initial thoughts. This is first initial thoughts. So I'm keeping it a little bit.
Okay.
I'm playing it real close to
I know.
vest.
You came out hot. You were like, I have so much to talk about. I am going to, I just
do
have a laundry list of notes that I want to, and your first is just, wasn't his best, wasn't his worst.
Because ultimately, that's how I felt about this movie. There was a lot of things that I enjoyed about it. There were some really cool things that I thought he did in this movie. And then there was I have a lot of issues with this movie.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
I, funny enough, kind of had the same reaction as you. When the movie ended, I have never felt so apathetic leaving a movie. And it wasn't like I was hoping that I would jump from my seat and be like, yes, like what a masterpiece. Like I knew it wasn't going to be.
Sure. But
I also thought that I was either going to have a typical Abby reaction where it was like, these are the things that I hate. I hated this. I hated that. That was bad. This was bad. Or I thought I was going to be like, oh, wow, the spark is back. M. Night is back. And I really didn't feel that way.
No.
Like either way.
No.
But what's really interesting is I also agree with you that there is so much to talk about and unpack in this movie that I feel like even though I have so much that I want to share and unpack, it doesn't make that much sense that I also simultaneously feel just completely
nothing
and incredibly apathetic about it.
And one of the first things that kind of stood out to me, and part of the reason why I feel so apathetic, and possibly why you do too, I hope you agree with me. Yes, it's an apocalypse movie, and this family is being faced with a choice and to prevent the apocalypse, like it said in the thing. But it's also trying to tell us about this family, and how it accomplishes that are like these cut scenes where they're like flashbacks to like little memories and like basically like core memories of each of the members of the family.
Yeah.
Those cutscenes did nothing for me.
Absolutely nothing.
They were truly devoid of feeling. Just felt really surface level.
Yeah.
And it felt really choppy. Like it didn't feel cohesive as part of the movie. And they came at very weird times. I
was going to say, I feel like the cutscenes didn't play into the main storyline. So like usually when there is a flashback, it's like, you know, something reminds somebody of something. And so like it flashes back, or there's a theme that you're dealing with. And so it flashes back. These flashbacks were just like, well, let's just cut back like real quick. Like,
out of nowhere.
And it was like they were trying to make us empathize with the family. And to be honest with you, you didn't really need those flashbacks in order to empathize with a family who like is being, and this is in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, but their choice is basically they have to sacrifice one of their family members.
They're also being held hostage.
Yes.
So like, it's not hard to empathize with people being held hostage.
It's
like, clearly they're in distress.
Right.
We get that.
Their whole choice is sacrificing a member of their family. And I think every single human being literally on this planet, unless you're a sociopath who is devoid of empathy, would be capable of connecting with a family that is forced to make that choice.
Yes.
And also being held hostage.
Right.
And I think we've seen in horror movies throughout all of time that you don't need to build these elaborate backstories for people in order for the audience to connect to somebody and to feel scared for them, to empathize with them, to connect with them. Mm-hmm. They could have done subtle nods and hints at their past and their connection as a family instead of like cramming these weird little backstories.
Yeah.
And by weird, I don't mean that they were weird. It was like, I'm going to say something so mean to M. Night right now, but like, it was like film student backstories. Like, it was like, what would a gay person go through? A gay person would go through a hate crime. A gay person, like, a gay person would go through a non-accepting family.
Honestly, we didn't need the cutscenes at all.
Yeah.
Like you said, we could have just established their characters in the present time without having all of these random cutscenes, like you said, that were literally just like almost stereotypes of a gay person's life.
Yeah.
Which
completely.
It felt, I think maybe that's why we felt so apathetic, because even though it was about a queer family, I didn't connect to it at all.
Not
in
at
the
all.
least. Even though there were things that I've experienced, even that part of the movie, I didn't feel like, oh man, like that sucks. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't really think he accomplished what he was trying to accomplish with those scenes.
No. And I mean, honestly, like, all he really needed to do was just have a couple of scenes of getting to know the family, like, as they show up to the cabin and what they're like. And these little tiny moments, like I said, like subtle moments where you get to know who they are as people, their connection, the roles within the family.
Just the dynamic.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you too, was that everything felt like so stereotypical and like black and white, like this is what a gay experience is. Yeah. Which, first of all, I mean, the choice in and of itself of having your gay couple be represented by two white, handsome men,
right,
in and of itself is a stereotype.
Exactly.
Like, that was one of my biggest concerns with Bros, which was they were trying to, you know, show the world this like queer love story. And of course, like the one that they choose to show is the most accepted queer love out there.
Right.
Like, society, for the most part, has gotten past two handsome white men loving each other.
Yeah.
That's like the one that they don't care about.
That's the most universely accepted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And has been for a very long time.
The longest time.
Which, obviously, I'm not saying that like white gay men don't go through shit. Like,
sure.
Every gay person has gone through shit.
Yeah.
But I think it was really hard to like connect to that.
Yeah.
And it also was really hard to connect to their relationship because there was an obvious discomfort with showing them in love.
Yeah.
Like, it was it reminded me of, do you remember in Pretty Little Liars when the one character came out as like a gay woman?
Yes.
And she would have like love scenes
yeah,
with a girl and they would just like hug.
Yeah.
It was
for
like
an extra long time.
It's like gay people just hug.
Yeah.
Any other movie showing a straight couple would have shown a Saturday morning laying in bed together. They would have shown
holding hands,
kissing, their first kiss. Like, if you were showing backstory trying to get you to fall in love with this couple and to fall in love with their experience and to connect with them, you would show them actively and truthfully being in love. And there was zero chemistry, connection. And that wasn't through any fault of the two actors.
No.
It was just they refused to show it. And I was like, man, it felt a little like we were afraid to go there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. That's why I said I think it was very surface level. I think it was very literal and stereotypical. And I think that's why we, as actual queer people, were like, feels fake.
Yeah.
Feels fake. Even though Jonathan Groff is gay, I'm assuming the other Daddy Andrew.
I can't with Daddy Andrew, Daddy Eric.
That's the other thing. We've got to talk about that.
No gay couple. I mean, I'm not going to say no because I'm sure there's a gay couple out there that does go by their first name with their kid. But no gay couple is like, I'm Daddy Andrew and you're Daddy Eric. They say, I'm Papa and you're Dad. Or you're Daddy and I'm Dad.
Right.
Or you're Mommy and I'm Mama. Whatever the combination is, there are multiple words for parent that isn't Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew. I was like, what?
Again, very literal.
Very literal and also very out of touch. Nothing about his portrayal of these two men felt real, felt natural, felt genuine. That was the biggest thing, is they did not feel genuine.
No. Another thing that he was trying to do that I don't think he succeeded in, it was like the nods to Hitchcock. I'm not an expert in Hitchcock by any means.
Right.
But I did dabble in college. I wasn't a film major. We've all established I was a psychology major. I did take one film class called, I think, Hitchcock. I'm not sure.
Just Hitchcock.
We just watched Hitchcock movies and we studied
and analyzed them.
We analyzed them. We studied his techniques, which were at the time sort of groundbreaking and have laid a lot of groundwork for horror movies since then.
Right.
The dolly zooms.
The vertigo shots. Yeah.
There were a lot of them.
There were a lot of them, and there was a lot of canted angles also.
Yeah.
The camera work was interesting.
So that's what I'm getting at. There were a lot of weird close-ups where, like,
extreme close-ups.
Part of their faces were like cut out of the frame.
Yeah.
I feel like the score was a little Hitchcocky.
Truthfully, I didn't even notice the score. And I'm gonna throw that out there. That was probably the last thing that I even paid attention to, which I'm going to quickly say that the audio mixing in this movie was horrendous, and that might be why I didn't notice it. So continue.
I noticed it really more at the beginning. I noticed the Hitchcock themes and techniques more at the beginning because I did notice the score at the beginning, and then at some point in the movie, I agree with you, it kind of just like fell off and I didn't hear it anymore. But at the beginning, like you said, the canted angles, the dolly zooms, even just like the choreography of where the actors were in the frame and like how they were moving about in the cabin at the beginning, it just all felt very Hitchcock to me.
And felt like it lacked purpose. It felt like every choice they made was just like, this looks cool.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say about the film school thing. It was like, these are all the techniques I learned to do on a camera in film school. And I put them all in the same movie, back to back. Multiple dolly zooms. Like, it was just like doing too much.
It reminded me a little bit of my cinematography class where like part of our homework every single week was you were in teams of 3 and your homework was to bring a 5-second shot, and that 5-second shot was, one week we did a Steadicam shot, one week we did a dolly shot, one week we did mixing warm and cool lighting. So basically like every single week for the entire course we had to come in with a shot that was based around a concept, but then you could design the shot however you wanted.
Right.
And it had no context. There was no plot. There was no writing. It was just a subject, and you shot it for 5 seconds and you turned that in. And it like this movie felt like that. Like it felt like he was just piecing together shots that he thought looked fun and that like his cinematographer looked cool, but served no purpose and really didn't move his story or the film in any capacity.
Honestly, like, even the directing, like I just felt like it was just so many weird choices.
Yeah.
And all of those weird choices ended up with sort of this vacant film.
I think I came out of it knowing that there was a lack of direction and a lack of purpose behind everything. And in turn, that made me think, is there a meaning to this movie? Or was it just making something that he thought sounded cool?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, was there analysis that we should be doing? Should we be breaking down these roles? Should we be looking into these themes? Should we be reading into it on a religious or a political like stage? And so I think like as I was watching the movie, I was trying to analyze it, but then I came out of the movie thinking, well, that didn't even have direction or purpose. So did he mean anything by that at all?
Right.
And I know that I've seen in the past couple of days that this movie was based on a book.
Yes. And I noticed that like when the credits were rolling.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Based on both.
However, the only thing that I've known, which now I really want to do more research on the book, was that apparently the baseline story is the same, but the ending is completely different. And also like a lot of the movie is completely different. So I feel like he read this book and was like, that's a really cool idea, but I want to do it differently. Yeah. And then did it differently, but then never really asked himself the right questions of, why am I making these choices? Why am I using these camera angles? Why am I telling these character stories through flashback instead of through progressive moments that happen naturally?
Right.
I feel like he didn't ask himself those questions, and I feel like he also didn't ask his actors to answer those questions for themselves.
No.
He didn't push anyone to think of themselves outside of this like very generic box that he put everybody in.
Yeah.
And funny enough, the only actor in the entire movie who succeeded at developing his character and giving us like a meaty performance was fucking Dave Bautista.
He really did.
He was great.
He did that.
Dave Bautista, I'm going to say it right now, was my absolute hands down favorite part of this movie.
Yeah.
I thought he was an incredible character. I thought he gave an amazing performance. I thought he had the most layers out of every character in the entire movie. He was both menacing and terrifying, but also like sweet and cute and genuine and charming. And I was just like absolutely floored, first of all, that Dave Bautista was like giving such a great performance.
Yeah, we didn't know he had that kind of depth.
Yeah, I mean, he was great in Guardians of the Galaxy, but like I never saw this coming from him. And I was really impressed by his performance, and I thought he was able to do something with his character that everybody else wasn't able to do. Right. And funny enough, he didn't get a cutscene. So he doesn't have any backstory. He told that all through his performance. And I thought that was really great. I think going off of the positive notes, also, you and I think if anybody has listened to our podcast from the beginning, knows that we are absolute connoisseurs of disaster movies.
Yes.
We love a disaster.
We eat the shit up.
I don't know why. I have no reason for why I love disaster movies, but I truly do.
Yeah.
There's something about watching a large scale disaster that leaves like a pit in my stomach more than like a horror movie, which obviously I love horror too, but like it like freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I have that fear of big things. What is that fear?
Damn.
So in like Moonfall, when you see the moon approaching the earth, that is scarier to me than Michael Myers chasing somebody.
Yes. Fear of large objects is called megalophobia.
Megalophobia. I think I have that. And so I loved the scenes in this movie that made me feel like that, because I get a rush from that. I get that adrenaline shot, and there are some like apocalyptic things that happen in this movie.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of my favorite parts of the film.
I was going to say, I feel the same way as far as things that I liked about this movie. That was definitely one of them, for the same reason, because we love disaster movies. It was cool. I thought those aspects and elements were really cool, and I enjoyed that as well.
And I also thought that those scenes was honestly like more scary than what was happening inside the cabin. Yeah. Even though if you were to say, which we can talk about in the spoiler section, if you were to say on paper what happens in the cabin, it should be terrifying, disturbing, terrifying. I didn't feel any sense of like urgency. I didn't feel any sense of true fear outside of like Dave Bautista's size and like his ability to kind of provide that.
Right.
But I didn't feel connected or scared in any capacity of what was happening inside the cabin.
What was happening inside of the cabin should have been evoking dread. It should have been evoking terror, like you said, and just utter fear.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Nothing. All that being said, what is your popcorn score?
Okay, I'm going to give it a medium.
Okay.
I'm going to be fair, because I didn't hate this movie. I know it sounds probably like I did.
Yeah.
Because really for the first time in the history of this podcast, I had critiques of a movie.
Right.
Which, like, who am I? I've never come to the table with notes that were negative about a movie, really, ever. So I didn't hate this movie. Again, I thought it was a fun watch.
Yeah.
There were parts of it that I really liked. Overall, though, I just think it was a miss on a lot of fronts. So for me, it's a medium.
I think if we're looking at a percentage, and like everything under 50% would be a small, and then everything between, you know, a 90 and a 50 is a medium. That's a big, that's a big chunk.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how the American school system works.
Got him.
Why don't they just start giving out popcorn ratings instead of test scores?
Honestly, at this point, they should.
They should.
Because a 60 is now passing.
Yeah.
That's where we're at, folks.
I'll say, in that context, this was a medium popcorn. It is not terrible. No. It was well done in some sense. Sure. It was a fun original thought. It was a cool concept. I think it's worth one watch.
Yes.
I don't think I'll ever watch it again. No. Maybe I will, to like see if I can like analyze it a little bit more and not feel as like apathetic towards it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's like it's literally like a 51% for me.
Yeah.
It's like a true medium. It's not like a medium end. Yeah. It's a low end. That being said, we just ripped this movie
on
apart.
This movie.
I know.
I don't feel bad though. I mean, I stand by everything that I've said. Just saying. No regrets.
You said that like M. Night himself is listening to this podcast.
Yeah, well, if you are, I don't regret it.
Welcome back to the spoiler section of the podcast, where we get to talk about all the things that we likely don't like about this movie.
More things we hate about this movie.
More things we hate about this movie. I can't believe M. Night Shyamalan really made two gay characters decide whether or not they were going to murder each other in order to save the world.
Yeah.
The entire movie, thought there's going to be, because it's M. Night, there's going to be a twist here. And the twist is going to be that, yes, these people are making this shit up and they're just deranged. And I thought that maybe it was kind of pointing in the direction of like QAnon or like Reddit sub posters where basically these four horsemen of the apocalypse, who are these four people, Dave Bautista, Ron Weasley, and these two women that come with them, who basically also were very nondescript people.
Yeah.
They all kind of were. Even Ron Weasley was. Yeah. Which Ron Weasley could not keep an accent straight. He was supposed to be from Boston, kind of sounded Southern, also a little bit British.
And also was in the movie for approximately 10 minutes.
5 seconds. Yeah. But anyways, the reason that they found each other was that they all are having these shared visions of the end of the world.
Right.
And they find each other on a messaging board, and then they say, let's all meet at this boardwalk, and if we're all there and we're all wearing the things that we thought each other was going to wear, then that's it. Like we are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Their whole story was making me feel like, is he making a social comment about echo chambers, which a character in the movie really did mention that, where he was just like, you know, you're all bringing the same delusion onto this message board, and you're all just echo chambering until you're all having a shared delusion, which is currently happening in America right now.
Actively has been happening
in America, which, by the way, conspiracy theories have a long link to people with trauma.
Yeah.
And it's basically people with unaddressed trauma who are trying to find a meaning in this world.
Yes.
And a reason for all of their suffering. And so they come up with these delusions of grandeur that lead to conspiracy theories. And when people get in a room together and they all have trauma and they're all talking about it, some weird shit can happen.
Very weird. And it really snowballs fast.
And it really snowballs like exceptionally fast. That's how cults happen. That's how like QAnon happens. That's how all of these things happen. Sometimes like full ass religions. That's how it happens. And so I thought that he was making a commentary about that Yeah. And eventually we were going to find out that, you know, this was all scripted and they did come up with this like on their own.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. And when it actually turned into Jonathan Groff sitting there explaining to his husband why he has to kill him in a weird way, like I'm gonna say it, like maybe it kind of was a twist that it was all real.
Yeah,
it kind of was a twist that these were actually the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and that the apocalypse was actually actively happening.
Yeah,
and that these 2 random fucking gay dudes in Pennsylvania had to decide who they were gonna kill, each other or their daughter,
right,
in order to save the world. And I know that there's a famous trope called bury your gays, which is basically in horror movies, thriller movies, action movies, if there is a gay character, you can almost guarantee that one of them is going to die.
Interesting.
It's just a thing that people do.
Okay.
And it also often happens with Black people. Gotcha. And that's happened in horror movies throughout time, is that if there's a gay character or a Black character or a slut, you know they're going to die.
Yes.
And it's basically like, whoever is marginalized, let's kill them.
Yeah, they're dead.
And it's a cop-out because directors think that if they put somebody who is marginalized or who is somebody that people can empathize with, then it's more dramatic. It's more tragic. They think of it that way, but then...
because they're an outcast.
Because they're an outcast and they're struggling. But then, like, they're the first ones dead, always. Right. And I feel like this movie was just like, let's just, like, lean into that as hard as humanly possible. Yeah. Where the end of the movie was actually 2 gay characters married, in love with a child, have to sacrifice one of them.
Each other.
And their relationship and their happiness and their family, so that every shitty person on earth can live.
M.
Night's sweetie. I'm sure in this book there's probably like a gay couple,
right?
And he just ran with that and was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And that's my point that I was making earlier in the podcast, is that because he lacked so much direction and purpose in this movie, I feel like I can't really, like, I don't think he's like homophobic, because he tried really hard to show that this couple loved each other as much as any other couple does, which, like, that in and of itself was exhausting to watch. Yeah. But I feel like he was trying to make a point of, like, I'm here for the gays.
I feel like it was trying to set it up like the gays were like the chosen ones and like they're like the heroes.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's like, well, these gay people who supposedly love each other so much and like are such a close family, now their life is ruined for all of the other people who have marginalized them.
Right. I'm not saying that this was his meaning behind this decision, to have them have to sacrifice Jonathan Groff. R.I.P. Jonathan.
Kristoff from Frozen.
But here's the thing. As people who have lived a queer experience, both of us have been asked by straight people in our lives to give up our relationship in order to make them comfortable, to make them happy.
Yep.
And having a character look his husband in the eye and say, you have to kill me in order to save everybody on this earth, aka make everybody happy.
Yep.
We have to sacrifice our happiness, our future, our love
for the comfort
of everybody else. When I was processing that message in the theater, dude, I was just like, oh my God,
dude.
And again, if that was intentional, this is the most homophobic movie of all time.
Yeah, like 100%.
Unintentional, which I truly think that it is. I truly think that M. Night wasn't trying to do this on purpose. Unintentional, it's just careless. Honestly, besides the questionable reasoning behind the movie, my biggest issue was that the climax of the movie is Jonathan Groff dying. Yeah. And them ending the apocalypse. Right. And it 100% did not feel like a climax.
No.
It just kind of happened. And I think one of the reasons why it felt so dull and dead and such a unsatisfying moment was because I 1,000% don't believe that Jonathan Groff's character could have convinced Daddy Andrew to kill him in that moment.
No.
They weren't there yet.
They were not anywhere close to being there.
At no point in the movie did I feel like either of them actually believed that the apocalypse was happening.
No.
Until suddenly it was.
And all of a sudden, it was just like Jonathan Groff's character has this whole proclamation. He's like, wait, they were the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And like explains it to us. Like
one of them represented misery.
It was malice. Nurturing, healing.
Guidance.
There you go.
Yeah, so he was like, one of them represents malice, one of them represented nurturing, one of them represented healing, and the other represented guidance. They are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
He literally said that whole thing.
Like I'm not actually joking right now.
What she just said is exactly the script, like line for line. And it was like, wait, are we about to get like a PowerPoint about like the apocalypse?
He's trying to present like a school presentation about why he should be shot and killed at the end. So you should shoot and kill me, because
that moment happened so suddenly that it was just like, wait. Now all of a sudden they know who's gonna die. Like 2 seconds ago they didn't even believe that any of this was real.
It was everything happened way too fast.
Too fast.
I also thought that poor Wynn's character was so thrown away.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, she wasn't like the greatest child actor in the world, but I thought that
she was so cute.
She was adorable. And I think any scene in a movie like that where it's apocalyptic or a horror or a thriller, like a child brings the stakes up. Like a child's presence raises the stakes.
Yeah.
Everything's a little more traumatic. Everything's a little more disturbing. Everything's a little more fucked up. And at the end of the movie, they just threw her away. They literally were like, go in this treehouse and put your headphones on and don't come out until we get you. And she wasn't there for any of the end.
No.
Meanwhile, we opened the film with her. We opened the whole movie with her collecting these grasshoppers. We opened the film with Dave Bautista's character kind of like trying to butter her up and like get into her good graces. And I really thought that they were setting her up as the eyes of the movie. Like we were going to experience the whole thing through her eyes. And so I thought there was going to be that type of moment where she was going to be the catalyst for either ending the apocalypse, or she was going to be the catalyst to figuring out that all of this was bullshit, which I thought was going to be the ending. I was wrong. I was very wrong. They just kind of threw her away. They were just like, oh, you're a cute kid, but go in the treehouse for the end.
Just go to your room for a minute.
Yeah.
We'll come get you when it's done. We'll come get you when the apocalypse is over, sweetie.
Apocalypse. So that being said, I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but this movie had a lot of potential.
Yes.
And it had a really good performance by Dave Bautista. I thought Daddy Andrew did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Jonathan Groff was like, I'll never watch this movie again.
I won't. I will not.
That does it for us.
Yes.
I am so sorry if you loved this movie and we just spent like the last half hour just tearing it apart. You might really enjoy this movie.
And that's okay.
I'm not we don't think you're homophobic for liking
no, we don't. We absolutely do not.
We absolutely
it's okay.
do not.
If you like this movie, you can tell us. We won't be mad.
Right. Next week is going to be a little bit of a genre shift. We're going to quite the genre shift. You have some homework to do because you have to catch up on some Ant-Man movies.
No. I haven't seen a single one.
Yeah. We are going to be reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So we're going to be back on our Marvel bullshit.
Yes, we are.
Until then, I hope you have a great weekend, a great week ahead of you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the ride home.